Glenn, thank you for those very warm words. Yes, I mean, I clearly did something right this time last year to be invited back again today as well. So delighted to be back and see so many more people today at the GS1 conference in 2016. So as Glenn said, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for ABHI, and I'll give you a little bit of detail for those who don't know who ABHI are. But it's not me that does this work on GS1. I've got a fantastic team led by my colleague Judith Mellis and some of the working groups that we have composed of our members that are actually trying to take forward this journey on GS1. And I guess with a very specific discussion coming up around FMD, my discussion here is really about trying to kind of share with you some further thoughts and observations that we've had as an association, taking into account the views of our members around the journey in GS1. And that for us, I think, is about really the what and the how, but importantly, the why. And those are the kind of observations that I want to share with you today over the next 10 minutes or so. Brief recap about who ABHI are, some of the challenges that we observed last year, and how we've seen some of those challenges resolve themselves. And there's still a few other elements which are about rubber hitting the road, I think. I want to, perhaps share, talk with you about some of those, discuss some of those with you, and perhaps through the Q&A, open up some of those topics for discussion as well. So for those of you who don't know who ABHI are, the acronym stands for Association of British Healthcare Industries. We represent the medical technology sector that operates here in the UK. And we've got about 250 members. And if you cut that membership pie, that's about 180, 190 companies within that overall number. And our raison d'etre is unashamedly business orientated. We're about advancing access to those proven, effective medical technologies. And whilst the slide is quite busy, what it's trying to articulate here is that we do that work amongst four pillars. The kind of commercial and market access environment that most of our members work in, with the NHS as their main and principal customer. Recognizing that the industry is quite diverse, and as a result of that, a very vast swathe of those companies that are members actually want to do business with international markets. So we try and fulfill that need. And then the regulatory and compliance elements that are so critical right now for the industry as well. And just on that point, slight tangential, it's really fantastic that NHS England recognizes that with some of the elements of change happening around managing conflicts of interest, that they recognize that industry codes of practice around best practice are well suited to complement work that they're doing around sunshine rules as well. So, but what am I here to talk about in terms of GS1? Well, I shared with you that this is about the why, the what, and the how. And this slide is really about just reinforcing the why. So we started this journey on GS1 implementation, and I'm giving you a very medtech specific perspective on GS1 implementation, and my colleagues will no doubt want to give the pharmaceutical view on it. We started this journey around GS1 3+ years ago. Across our membership, the why, and I wasn't here this morning, so I'm sure the speakers from this morning and those of you who are from NHS organisations are going to articulate this far more eloquently than me. The why is really, really well understood and aligned across my membership. Absolutely, there are some very obvious tactical benefits, and I'm going to use that quite provocative kind of word around some of the operational elements that you're going to gain from GS1 implementation across purchasing, across supply chain. Those are, in my opinion, pretty obvious. Some of the more real long-term benefits that I think we're going to get from GS1 are about the patient safety piece, are about driving forward on outcomes and quality, traceability when it comes to how GS1 is going to help address some of the regulatory requirements around traceability, vigilance, audit, for instance. As I said, I wasn't here this morning, but what colleagues have shared with me is that some of those longer term, more strategic, and I guess kind of quite hard to unpick benefits are starting to surface well above those more obvious elements around the operational pieces. So that to me is about productivity. And it's great that we, over the past, 12 months since Lord Carter started his work on efficiency, some of the elements about productivity and efficiency are coming to the fore. And we in ABHI see GS1 standards, GS1 protocols, and the work that our members are doing to implement those as being critical enablers. Okay, so Glenn said that I've been a critical friend to GS1, and thank you, Glenn. That's a really nice compliment. So this time last year, when I was here and speaking with attendees, then we identified some challenges with the e-procurement strategy, of which GS1 is the underpinning framework. Timelines. Technical complexity. I'm not going to read through all of these, but these were, if I think about the what, so I've talked to you about the why, and as to why our members are really aligned here. Some of these are about the what and the how. And the what and the how were some really thorny issues. And this time last year, some of the elements about what were real challenges we were getting into. It's great, though, when I step back now in April 2016 to try and see some really solid progress around some of these challenges. So this, 12 months ago, the ambitious timeline for rollout of the e-procurement strategy was something that we were signaling very strongly. And it's fantastic that that feedback's been taken on board, and some of the timelines are becoming a bit more realistic and practical. The complexity of rolling out GS1 standards across a membership base that's quite diverse, an industry that's quite diverse, large multinationals, a long tail of British SMEs was also something that we spoke about. I think that is still a challenge. Aspects around data attributes and some more rubber hitting the road issues that I'm going to touch on continue to be a challenge for us. I also mentioned that one of the benefits of GS1, aside from the operational piece, are about patient safety and quality and outcomes. Well, one of the things that we see more and more is that people starting to understand that doing some of the technical elements of change is important, and critically so. But actually, that's only going to be valid if behavior changes to extract benefits and realize some of those gains. And I think, again, last time we were curious as to whether or not some of that behavioral change was going to be visible, gain some traction. And again, reflecting on what people have been telling me since I've been at this venue for the past couple of hours, it's good to see that some of that behavior change is happening, both on the industry side and on the customer side as well. Fantastic direction and guidance that we're now getting from the department. So I really want to thank colleagues at DH and GS1 and other solutions providers to the work that they're doing to provide more guidance and direction to us and to our members. And then the last piece, which is about the aspect that we flagged around last year, was about implementation being aligned and coterminous with the NHS, because it was, from our perspective, it was hard to see whether this was something that was going to be supply-side driven or whether it was going to be demand-side pulled. And what we're starting to see, particularly with the great work that the demonstrator sites are doing, is that demand-side pull is really at the heart of particularly some of the behavioral change elements that our members will benefit from, and I'm sure patients will benefit from as well. So overall, 12 months down the road, there's some solid progress that working in partnership with the department, with solutions providers like GS1 and their partners, it's fantastic to report back on. That said, there are still some issues that I think we need to bottom out, and it'd be great perhaps to kind of explore some of this in the Q&A. As we start to think about how the supply chain is going to start working more efficiently, if it isn't already, then there's a conversation to be had about how the variety of solutions providers out there work with customers and the supply base. What we don't want is a huge and overly complex and bureaucratic landscape out there. Some consistency and frameworks to manage that would be really helpful. So some technical elements that I think some of you in the audience who are very knowledgeable of in terms of implementation still remain. And one of the aspects that I really want to focus on, which I think is crucially important over the next year, is about interacting and engaging with the demonstrator sites. Because it's important, I guess, from our membership that all the work they're doing is seen and is visible within the customer base as well. So one of the elements of focus for a small member group, a growing but small member group that we have in ABHI, is to interact with the demonstrator sites. And I'd really welcome the opportunity to have some conversations with those of you who are part of those demonstrator sites towards the end of this presentation as well. So, I hope you can read this from your vantage point there. Our milestones are really concentrated on continuing to support implementation across a very diverse membership. That's the first thing that I want to say in terms of a take-home. It might sound like a caricature, but in reality, if I did a straw poll, and I see some members here, if I did a straw poll, it would probably be fair to say that large corporates are leading on implementing some of the GS1 protocols. That's not something that's, it's a general rule, but general rules apply here, I believe. Our task right now is to ensure that the rest of our membership, that the SMEs that are on the leading trail, continue to maintain a similar level of gradient in terms of progress. So some of the things that we're working on, as an example. So when it comes to regulation change, and there's a huge amount of change coming for devices regulation led through Brussels. When it comes to class 3 products, the real high-risk medical devices, then there's a strong amount of work that we're trying to get done by autumn time of this year. Barcoding remains some work that we're carrying on and helping organizations with. And then I guess one of the real important benefits realization piece, full kind of electronic transactions. That's going to be an interesting journey, I think, that we all need to engage on as well. So next steps then, when I think back to what we did last year with 3 segments that are really important for us: members, partners, DH and NHS. Last year we hosted my colleague Judith hosted 2 seminars, oversubscribed just like today is, and tomorrow will be, seminars to help our members understand the change and get prepared for that change. And we'll continue with that. Engagement for us is really, really important as we continue to progress on this GS1 implementation change curve. Engagement with DH will continue, and I can't stress how important it is that the support we're getting from Steve and his team is really welcomed. And with partners like GS1, it is really about implementation and support again. So for us, this is about focusing on what good looks like. My first slide of why we're doing this, the patient benefit, the productivity and efficiency benefits, and I think that's the prize. There's a huge amount of mutuality here between supply and demand side, and I think one of the perennial issues that have always daunted relationships being constructive and productive has been about trust. So we've got events like this where there's industry and NHS is great to see, because it just breaks down some of those barriers of suspicion so that we can build trust. And collaboration, it's absolutely critical that we continue to collaborate and drive those benefits for patients and the health systems. Thank you.